Dr. Olive Kobusingye was barely known until she authored The Correct Line, a stinging criticism of President Museveni's style of governance. Since then, she has been ushered into the crosshairs of politics. Kobusingye is not only a sibling to the opposition leader Dr. Kizza Besigye, but a rare breed of the unsung female surgeons who had spent a quiet career in Zimbabwe until she returned 2 years ago after Mugabe's reign of terror sent the sound economy into a tailspin. Her book consignment remains held at customs at Entebbe International Airport, with government releasing little on why the books have been held, but citing the country's security. Senior presidential advisor on the media and public relations John Nagenda, who writes the no-holds-barred column One Man's Week in one of the local dailies, summed up the ban as an uncanny action that could work to favor Besigye in the 2011 election.
What it has succeeded in doing, ironically enough, is to make the book a very hot property. People would now be rushing out to buy it. It gives that thrill of reading something which they had been kept away from. So that will make it popular. Secondly, it will make the writer's brother, who is Colonel Kizza Besigye, put him very much on the map. I mean, if you've been following the news recently, nobody talks about him.
Nagende, book author himself, who has been reading Dr. Kobusingye's book, says though he does not agree with the author's disposition, the correct line is not the satanic verses, Salman Rashidi's toxic views on Islam. He asks government to save face and quickly release the book.
It wouldn't be a bad idea if somebody had the guts to stand up and say, we fouled this up. We are sorry. It was done in the heat of the moment, and here's the book. People read it, enjoy, dissect it, see what you think of it.
The book shows an illuminating chronicle of Museveni's regime since 1986 and compares his government to George Orwell's classic Animal Farm. Published in 1945, this allegorical novel tells the story of pigs who led a rebellion of animals against their oppressive master John's off Manor Farm, only for them to turn around and do exactly, if not worse, what they had rebelled against. We sought the views of the author on why she authored The Correct Line, a book that was prefaced by renowned academic Professor Onyango Loka.
The correct line, it's a question. Are we on the correct line? Have we adhered to all those principles that were talked about? Have we observed the things that were important then that still remain important? People's liberties, observing human rights, allowing people to choose their own leaders. I keep saying that President Museveni launched a war. All I was asking is to launch a book. I'm not launching a war, just a book of ideas. And I think that's not too much to ask.
In the preface to the book, Dr. Kobusingye writes thus, and I quote, "In January 1986, there was every reason for most Ugandans to believe that the bad times were gone forever. The near unanimity of euphoria with which Ugandans celebrated the arrival of the National Resistance Army has turned to disillusionment," end quote. As the whiff of censorship now lingers over the fate of this book, we also ask the author whether her work might whip up any incendiary sentiments amongst the public, or was it meant to demonize the president ahead of the general election? In other words, was the timing of the launch of this book right?
Sure, I'm sure there's material that is out there, could be maybe distributed in pamphleteering style that offends people, that causes social unrest in some instances. I doubt that a book of this nature would fall in that category. But I'm not naive enough to imagine that the timing hasn't, in some ways, created the kind of anxiety that has led to this.
A political historian at Makerere University, Mwambusi Ndebesa, says both authoritarian and democratic regimes censor critical books or an academic publication. He, however, fears that censorship only glorifies the withheld book, and under the age of cyberspace, the decision to withhold the book is not wise.
When the Muslims condemned Salman Rushdie's book, Satanic Verses, it forced the whole world to begin reading the book. So it might be the same with this book of Kobusingye, which would have been read by a few elites in Kampala. But now it is in the limelight, and people are going to read it using online.
As controversy continues to swirl over the correct line, Ndebesa says some paranoid political actors could have feared that the book might be a powerful campaign tool against the incumbency.
But when you read the title, possibly some others, those who seized it, read it, it must be threatening the existence of the regime, not the state. Jittery, they get jittery and they would like to control information, because information is very, very, very vital in turning minds, in changing minds towards a certain direction. Maybe they fear that it might tilt the minds of Ugandans away from Museveni towards Besigye.
It's not the first time books are being seized or banned in the country. President Idi Amin, the little educated and paranoid despot, banned the teaching of animal farm in secondary schools. The second Militon Obote regime also centered critical publications of Professor Mahmoud Mamdan and later stripped him of his citizenship. Ever since Dr. Olive Kobusingye's book, The Correct Line, was seized at Entebbe International Airport, there's been a massive search on cyberspace for its contents, which are critical of President Museveni's 24-year legacy. However, it's too early to predict what kind of impact it will have on the 2011 election. Emam Taizibwa, NTV.